expand it, expand it, retract, expand, retract, 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 retract. Okay, so let me just kind of go back in again. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I think it is important to identify where the confusing points were. Okay, the first confusing point has to do with having two invocations on the same line. So let me just kind of break it down into the individual concepts that makes this kind of a troublesome type of example. Okay, so the first thing has to do with two invocations on the same line. Okay, how do we deal with that? Well, there's no shortcut. You cannot just take one and then assume the other one will give you the same result. So that means you have to take care of the first one first. When the first one returns with an actual value, when the question mark of the first invocation is resolved, then you go ahead and get rid of the second invocation. Okay, so you have to do it one by one. There's no shortcut to it. The second one has to do with an invocation in a return. Okay, now invocation in a return is not new. Okay, we have factorial and a few other sample programs that also had an invocation on the line of a return. So the reason why this makes it confusing is because you'll go back to the same line. You execute line 6, but the return info will also have a line 6. So the key to deal with invocation in a return is to blindly execute a return statement. If the return statement is return 5, then all you have to do is to find a return info column, copy and paste that cell, change the question mark to a 5, and you're done. Okay? Even if the return info cell tells you, oh, you are dealing with the same line that you're executing, don't worry about it. Your only job is simply to copy, paste, and replace the question mark, and you're done. Okay? And I think these two are basically, the combination of these two in the same program is what made this program more confusing than some of the other programs. Are there any questions? I mean, I really want to make sure that everybody understands what it is supposed to be at this point. So when I give you a new homework assignment of this nature, you guys can just ace that one and get all the points. Are you guys doing okay now? I mean,
yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I won't know if I've got it until I go to do it and I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question. So, as a hypothetical example, if we had, instead of on line 6 having the return be an invoke plus an invoke, if it was like an invoke within an invoke, we would do the same way basically that we did here, that you
resolve the inner invoke first in that case.
Okay,
Yep.
and then you would do the same thing of you would do the inner and then the outer and then take that value back to the question mark.
Right, exactly. Okay. So let me save this one first. Okay, I think it's already saved, and that's why it doesn't. That menu item is not. It's grayed out. And I think this part is kind of off. The verb versus the result. I think that's off. So I think what I should do is to identify the verb is here. The object is here. And the result is there. Well, let me see. Is that?
In that situation, the object's the first question mark, right?
No, the verb is on 19, right?
Mm-hmm. There we go. Better. So this is returning 2, and is return 2 means you have to go find a replace. You have to go find a return info cell and copy paste it, replace the question mark with 2. This is the object. This is what you are going to act on, and this is the result of acting on that particular object. Any questions about this? No questions? Okay. Let me just point out, some of the additional resources that is available. It's stuff that we have gone through, but I think when we got through that stuff the first time, it may not be obvious, because we didn't see, this kind of, confusing example. So we'll go back to updated material on subroutine first, which is, a part of the notes. Okay. And I'll just, jump to returning values. Okay, this one I think most of us know how to deal with. It's a single print statement with a single invoke with no parameters whatsoever on the other side. So I don't think we have to go through this again. And then we'll look at the second one. This one is also not too confusing, because it looks kind of bad because we have a invocation which is completely inside another invocation. In other words, the inner invocation, the only purpose of that is to specify the value of the parameter to the outer invocation. Okay, but it is almost the same thing as adding to, because it is you have to deal with one and then you deal with the other one. Except in this case, the outer one depends on the inner one. The next one is factorial. This is close to what we were doing with the homework assignment. We have a return statement, and the return statement itself also has an invoke statement. Okay, but in this case, we only have one invoke of the return statement and not two of those. So that's one resource you might want to go through this, just try to, make sure you understand this part here. And then the second one is the Fibonacci number example that we have gone through. I have no idea when we went through that, so I'll go ahead and try to find that first. Oh, I can find it pretty easily. Sorry?
I was looking at Alvin Redmond homework and he was in the 1017 files.
1017?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yep, you're right. I actually talked about it on the 17th for this class, on the 16th. Oh, that must be the Tuesday class, and then on the 19th for the Friday class. So that's why I have multiple copies, but you guys only have one. So if you go back to the notes on the 17th, and take a look at the Fibonacci number example, which is the last file of this thing. That cannot be right. The time and the date. Did we meet on the 17th? We did.
That's correct.
How can the date modify? It has a wrong time.
That's what I said on my computer.
Is that when you uploaded it?
Mm-hmm. No, that's the modified date, which means,
Is that when you emailed it out to us all?
No.
Because I get them about 10 o'clock at night.
You're able to come at midnight.
Yeah.
No, that's not it. Well, I don't know why, but this is the file. Yep.
Could it be that it was from your old corrupted drive where you first saved it and had the wrong timestamp on it?
That's possible. But this one, but the bottom line is this one does resemble the homework assignment that was due today the most. Because, in this case we have, guess what? We have a return statement that has invocations, and not just one, we have exactly two invocations, and we also have an add here. The only difference, the main difference between Fibonacci and the homework assignment due today is in this one, we use n-1 to specify n in the left invocation, and then we use n-2 to specify n for the second or the right invocation. But other than that, the program involves exactly the same concepts as the one that we are dealing with today for the homework assignment. The shape is different. Okay, if you look at the overall shape of this one, it doesn't look as symmetric as the one that we're dealing with in this class, because it is n-2 on the other side instead of n-1 on both sides. Okay, but it involves exactly the same mechanisms that we went through today. So this would also be a good example to review. And let me see if I have, did I have recordings on the 17th? Because if I had recordings on the 17th, that would be useful. Yep, I did. Let me just make sure that it is. Yep, they all look somewhat good. And there are 13 views of the first 2 portions too. Yep.
Is there any way to save all those so that I can have them where I can access them without being online?
There are add-ons or plugins that you can add to Firefox that will allow you to download a file.
One?
You just search for it. So you just say Firefox Flash download. Okay, you go to plugins, add-on for Firefox.
There's even an app, not an app, but a program you can download for free. I can't remember what the name of it is, but you enter in the URL and it'll download it for you. Like, that's it.
Flash God.
And we use Flash Video Drop one.
There's a whole bunch. I mean, this is something that people want to do. So there's a whole bunch of this stuff here. The only thing you have to be careful is, the resolution that you're viewing on the screen is the one that they will be downloaded. So if you want to download a high resolution one, you should turn it to HD and use the highest possible resolution first, and then download that one. Yeah, I don't mind people, downloading and keeping a copy on your own computer. That's fine.
While I'm studying for the final, I can go over.
You can also show your future professors, this is the kind of crazy stuff that Tech talks about in his class.
I think this is why I'm
Yeah, but Flash God, I think this one works fairly good. I can't remember which one that I have, which one that I used, But you just look through these and see which one works best. Okay. Any other questions? No questions? Are we okay with the file that I just saved? I mean, well, let's go ahead and do it again. So I'll give you guys one more homework assignment on the same topic, but it won't be exactly the same thing. In other words, you cannot easily predict what it's going to return. In fact, I'll give you one where the left invocation will return a different result compared to the right invocation. So that way, you will be convinced that you cannot just say, since the parameters look exactly the same, they must return exactly the same value, because they do not. Okay, I can make a program that do not guarantee that given the same parameters, they will return exactly the same value. So what I'll do is I'm going to do it right here on the fly. So by the end of today's session, you will have the homework assignment up on Moodle. And as I write the code, I will try to explain that as well, so that you guys know what to watch out for. Okay, I think that's probably the best way to do it. And this is what we'll do. Okay. So here's the program. I will try to resemble exactly the same structure just to make sure that you guys know how to deal with it, like having 2 invocations on the same line and also have a return as the final action to perform on that same line. So we call this subroutine 4 S4, by val, and in this case I will also have a by ref. Okay, we'll have one parameter passed by reference. So that's just kind of makes it a little bit more interesting, but not really a whole lot more. And we have the same thing here. If n equals to 0, then we perform one thing. We just go ahead and invoke S4 again. Return. Well, in this case, this is the end of it. So we just this is terminal. We'll just go ahead and return. This is what we'll do. X gets a value of 0. Return X. Else we will do